Patty melts are hard to beat, especially when you make them with buttery homemade brioche, homemade mayonnaise, Gruyere cheese, sautéed mushrooms, and a juicy burger right in the middle. Let me show you how I made this one. I'm going to heat up a pan with a little butter over low heat while we get everything prepped. For the onions, I'm using one red onion and one sweet Vidalia onion. I cook them low and slow until they get really soft and caramelized. After a while, they almost turn into this sweet onion jam that tastes like onions, butter, and sugar, and it works perfectly on a patty melt. I'm starting the onions first because these take a while to cook down. They'll usually go for about 45 minutes or so before they get really soft and caramelized. So while those cook, we can start getting everything else prepped out. Next, I'm going to get another pan heating up with a little butter while I prep the mushrooms. I'll slice those up, then cook them over medium heat until they soften down and start getting some color on them. I also like to slice the mushrooms pretty thin for this. They stay on the sandwich a lot better that way. And it makes it easier to stack everything into a nice even layer on the patty melt. Now that the mushrooms are cooking, we can go back and check on the onions. I'll just give them a quick stir and move everything around in the pan a little bit. Next, we'll slice the brioche. I do have a full brioche recipe on my channel, and I'll link that at the end of the video and here on the screen as well. You want the slices somewhat thick for a patty melt like this, and brioche works really well because it gets buttery and crispy once it hits the pan. Now we can go back and season the mushrooms and onions. I season pretty lightly at this stage since they're both still going to cook down a little bit more, but I do like seasoning them as they cook so the flavor builds gradually. You'll probably notice this recipe moves around a little bit, and that's honestly how I cook most of the time. I usually have multiple things going at once instead of finishing one item completely before starting the next. But I'll break everything down clearly so you can make each part separately and then put the sandwich together at the end. Traditionally, patty melts are made with Swiss cheese, but I'm using Gruyere here because honestly it's just a much better cheese for a sandwich like this. I'm also shredding it so it melts really nicely once we put it in the broiler. To go with the sandwich, I'm making some garlic rosemary fries. I'll do a full fry recipe in another video, but for these I like using russet potatoes because they have less moisture and get crispier in the fryer. Once they're finished, we'll toss them with some fresh garlic and rosemary while they're still hot. Now that the fries are finished, we can go back and check on the onions. At this point they've cooked down quite a bit, but I still want to give them more time to cook. They're going to get really soft and sweet, and they'll get deeply caramelized, and they just go perfectly with this sandwich. These are just about there, but they still need a little bit more time. So while the onions finish cooking down, let's go ahead and toast the brioche and start getting ready to build the sandwich. As always, we'll toast the bread in cast iron. We're really just looking to get a little color on it, and since this is brioche, it happens pretty quickly because there's already a good amount of butter and a little sugar in the bread. Once the bread's toasted, we can prep the beef. I'm using grass-fed ground beef here, and this 1-pound block is enough for 2 sandwiches, so about a ½ pound per patty. I'll season the beef with salt and pepper before it hits the pan so the whole burger gets seasoned instead of just the outside. Then we'll shape the beef into 2 patties and cook them off in the pan. I like making the patties just a little larger than the bread since they'll shrink slightly as they cook. Whenever I'm cooking burgers like this, I like to put them straight into the pan and leave them alone. If you move them around too much, you don't get that really nice hard sear on the outside. So I'll drop the patties into the pan, press them down pretty thin with the spatula, and just let them cook. Then we'll flip them once, and that's pretty much it. These cook pretty quickly since they're pressed out fairly thin, and I'm taking them almost all the way cooked through before we start building the sandwiches. While those finish cooking on the other side, we can start building the sandwich. I'll spread some of the homemade mayonnaise onto both slices of brioche, and then once the burgers are ready, I'll transfer that to one of the slices of bread. After that, we'll add the caramelized onions, the sautéed mushrooms, and the grated Gruyere. Then I'll slide everything under the broiler for a couple minutes just to melt the cheese and get a little color on top. This is only going to take a couple minutes under the broiler, so make sure you don't walk away while the cheese is melting. And this right here is exactly what we're looking for. Melted Gruyere with just a little bit of color on top. Now we can finish the sandwich, close it up with the top piece of brioche, and transfer everything over to the cutting board. This is definitely a rich sandwich. It's super bold and has really big flavors. Not something I'd eat every day, but every once in a while it's absolutely worth it. And this right here is exactly why patty melts are hard to beat. If you enjoy videos like this, I make a different sandwich every week, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you want to make the brioche or mayonnaise yourself, I'll have both of those recipes linked for you as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.